Rescue team save a giant humpback whale encrusted with countless barnacles. The sea was unusually calm, a stillness that stretched far beyond the horizon. The rescue team had been patrolling the waters for hours, scanning the vast expanse for any signs of distress. It was a quiet day until one of the crew members noticed something, a large shape moving sluggishly through the water, barely visible beneath the surface. The boat moved closer, the crew's attention sharpening. As they neared, the massive form became clearer, and their hearts sank. It was a humpback whale, easily 25 feet long, drifting aimlessly with the current. But what stood out were the barnacles, countless barnacles encrusting her skin like an unwanted armor, covering her back, sides, and even her tail. The sight was unsettling, a haunting picture of an animal bound by the weight of something it could not escape. Her enormous body floated lifelessly, barely making any movement as the boat approached. The whale's breath was shallow, her massive side rising and falling slowly, as though each inhalation was a quiet struggle. The barnacles weighed her down, her once graceful form now stilted by the thick crust that had adhered to her over time. The team moved with quiet urgency, their faces set in determination. They knew that the barnacles, though seemingly harmless at first, had become a threat to her survival. The layers upon layers of crusted growth had restricted her movement, and the pressure on her skin had likely caused wounds that could lead to infection. If they didn't intervene now, she might not survive. "She's weak," one of the divers whispered to the captain. "We need to move fast." The crew worked quickly but carefully. They didn't know how long the whale had been in this state. Weeks? Months? The barnacles had built up over time, so thick in some places that they resembled armor. It was clear that the whale had been suffering for quite a while, slowly drifting through the ocean, weakened by the burden of this parasite. The rescue team attached a line to the whale, slowly guiding her towards a boat, careful not to startle her. As they drew her closer, the scale of the problem became more apparent. The barnacles were everywhere, so thick that they formed large clusters that hung from her back like barnacle-studded rocks. Each barnacle, a tiny but sharp growth, had embedded into her skin, and every movement caused the whale to wince, though she gave no sign of protest. Despite the pain, the whale did not resist. She moved slowly, her body heavy and sluggish, but there was no panic in her eyes, only quiet resignation. Her enormous dark eye turned toward the crew, watching them, and for a brief moment, there was a silent connection between them. It was as if she understood they were there to help. The crew began the difficult task of removing the barnacles, each cut taking time and patience. The team worked in shifts, scraping the hardened growth from the whale's skin with specialized tools, taking care to avoid any open wounds. It was slow work. The barnacles were stubborn, glued to the skin by years of attachment, and the whale's immense size made it a challenge to reach every part of her. With each barnacle removed, the whale's movement became slightly more fluid, as if the weight had been lifted bit by bit. But even as they made progress, the team could see how much work remained. The whale was exhausted, her breathing labored, and it was unclear whether she would have the strength to stay afloat much longer. "She's hanging on," the diver said softly, as if speaking to herself more than anyone else. "We need to be careful." The crew continued their work, their movements deliberate and calm, always mindful of the whale's fragile state. The sun began to sink lower, casting a warm light across the water, but the work had to continue. Time was a quiet pressure on them all. They could not afford to rush, but the whale's strength was fading. As the sun dipped lower, casting a soft golden hue over the ocean, the barnacles were beginning to come off in large, rough patches. Still, the whale moved only in short, slow movements. Her eyes were heavy, and though she remained steady, the fight for her freedom was far from over. The rescue team did not speak much. There was no need for words. Every movement, every breath, every scrape of barnacle removed was enough. They were doing everything they could, and in the soft waves, the whale seemed to trust them. Each small removal felt like a victory, but the true test would come when they finally freed her from the weight of it all. Would she be able to swim again? Would the strength to move on return? The crew could only wait, working tirelessly, hoping the whale could hold on just a little longer. The hours passed slowly as the team continued to work, peeling away barnacle after barnacle from the whale's massive body. Despite their progress, the whale still drifted weakly, her movement slow and strained. But something had changed. Her breathing, once shallow and labored, seemed to ease, and a massive eye flickered toward the crew with an almost imperceptible sign of trust. One diver gently touched the whale's rough skin, offering quiet reassurance. The whale didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into the touch, her head tilting slightly in recognition. For the first time, the crew sensed the whale wasn't just enduring. They were helping her. As the last barnacles fell away, the whale's body moved more freely in the water. Though exhausted, she began to swim slowly, her movements more natural now. The team watched in quiet relief, knowing their work had made a difference. The whale, once burdened, now found the strength to return to the open sea. With a final glance, the whale swam away, disappearing into the depths, leaving behind only the soft ripples of a journey. The crew stood in silence, grateful for the trust shared in that quiet moment. With the last barnacle removed, the whale's body seemed to respond to freedom. She floated more easily, her once heavy movements now flowing with more grace. The pain, the struggle that had weighed her down for so long, was lifting. Her massive body, free from the suffocating coat of barnacles, was slowly regaining its natural rhythm. For a moment, the whale remained still in the water, her great eye drifting toward the crew. There was no longer the same hesitation in her gaze. Instead, there was something softer, a quiet acknowledgement, a trust that had built over the course of hours spent working in tandem. The crew had given her a chance to be free, and she, in return, had allowed them to help her. The veterinarian watched, her face calm but full of silent relief. The sun was beginning to dip lower, casting a golden hue over the water, and the whale, now able to move more fluidly, took a deep, powerful breath. She began to swim with purpose, her great tail moving in slow, deliberate strokes. It was as though the ocean, vast and open, was welcoming her back. She no longer seemed burdened by a previous struggle. The crew, exhausted but filled with quiet satisfaction, watched the whale swim away from boat. There was no rush, no frantic movement, just a steady, graceful journey back into the wild. She swam farther and farther, her large form gliding effortlessly through the water. For a moment, the boat remained still on the surface of the sea, the crew simply observing as the whale disappeared beneath the waves. It was a silent farewell, one that carried a deep sense of fulfillment. The whale had been given a second chance, and in that, so had they. As the boat turned slowly back toward the shore, the sun's fading light painted the ocean in shades of soft pinks and oranges. The crew didn't speak. There was no need for words. The moment had been enough. The trust between them and the whale had transcended any language. She was free now, free from the barnacles that had once trapped her. And so, they quietly let her go. The ocean, vast and endless, had taken her back, and as the boat drifted toward the shore, the team carried the quiet knowledge that they had shared in something far greater than the work they did. They had been a part of an animal's return to the wild. The memory of that trust, that shared moment, would stay with them forever.